Welcome everybody back to Friar Talk. Today we're going to talk about Robert Suarez's suspension, and then we're going to get a little bit into this Marlins series, wild card race, stuff like that. I'm not going to go live for this one. We will go live and kind of break down just where the Padres are at, the current state of them on Sunday. But today we're just going to do a little quick recap of the series to kind of see, how they're heading into this Brewers series this weekend. But first, Robert Suarez is suspended today for illegal substances. He is going to be receiving a 10-game suspension, and it's been kind of a disaster of a start for the contract for Robert Suarez. Now, I will say his ERA is it's almost a 5. However, his WHIP's under a 1. I think his stuff has looked pretty good, but he missed almost the whole year due to injury. Comes back. Now he gets caught with the sticky stuff. This is not what you want from a guy that you just paid a 5-year, $46 million contract to. And a guy that is potentially supposed to step in next year as your closer if Josh Hader leaves. So I think it's a little bit alarming. I mean, anytime a guy gets caught with sticky stuff, it's not good. I guess there is always the question of oh, well, were they using substance or meant to or whatever. I feel at this point, that was more 2021 when it was those questions where guys were adjusting to what they could and couldn't use. Everyone knows what they can use at this point. And the umpires are trained, seems pretty well to know what they're doing. The only time there was any controversy of if a guy actually used sticky stuff was when Max Scherzer freaked out earlier this year. But that's been it. Every other time it's oh, he got caught with sticky stuff. It is how it is. So I think most likely he was using some sort of substance. 10-game suspension right now for the Padres needing to just rip off a fat win streak if there's any chance at all of them making the playoffs is really rough. But what do you guys think right now about Robert Suarez with the suspension and also just in general with the contract and his season that he's currently having?
It's not good. He was one of your best relievers last year. He gets hurt and your bullpen suffers because of it. He gets back and he's not up to form and your bullpen still suffers because of it. So, yeah, it sucks to not have him, but he hasn't been really pitching all that well. The sticky stuff makes it even worse, and the suspension kind of almost puts the nail in the coffin of what it feels like to be a Padres fan this season of, wow, we are one of the most anticipated seasons in Padres history. And we are 6 games below 500. And even though we won today, we just lost one of our better relievers, even though he's having a down year because of sticky substance. And now he's going to be suspended. And hopefully the other guys can, maintain what they got going. And hopefully the Padres basket going. But it's just the team feels dead. Going back to Suarez, though, it's really disappointing to see because, he's been such a good pitcher. He was such a good pitcher last year. His stuff seems a little bit more hittable this year. That could be attributed to the injuries. He just hasn't really looked like himself. He hasn't had that command over his pitches that he's had over last year. And kind of he's starting over again. Remember Suarez when he first started last year? He was a little bit rough, but once he got into his groove, he was one of the best relievers, and he really hasn't been able to get into that groove, and this just kind of throws a wrench in there. And, depending on how long the suspension is, if he appeals, depending on how long he can play during his appeals, you're looking at maybe this guy's just kind of having a wash year and hope he gets it back together next, but kind of need him back. He's still one of your better relievers if he can get it together.
Yeah, Chase said it hasn't been very good. I'd say it's been trash, the way that this contract has started. But you know what? It's only because of how much time he's missed and how much time he's about to miss. It's not because of yes, his ERA is a 4.73 right now. But if you go through all of his performances, he has 13 innings pitched. And taking out that 2/3 that he pitched against the Dodgers where he allowed 5 runs, he's only allowed 1 run. So in 12 2/3 innings pitched, he's allowed 1 run. He's still been really, really good. He's still been a really solid reliever for the Padres, which is weird because it seems like every time he comes in, I get scared when he's only given me 1 reason to be scared since last year. 2, because I remember that walk-off in the first game of last year that Chase was at. Other than that, though, I mean, he's been pretty lights out. And what sucks the most, though, is that we gave him a fat contract. And you look at the Padres' history of fat contracts, at least this year, with Manny Machado underperforming, Xander Bogaerts underperforming, Yu Darvish underperforming, Jake Cronenworth, Robert Suarez, Nick Martinez, all these guys are not living up to the contracts that were given to them. It's just another really rough patch for the Padres that they're going to have to overcome if they want a chance at their already very slim hopes at making the playoffs. I don't know exactly what they're going to do with a setup role now, or the seventh inning role, whatever role they had set up for Robert Suarez, but an already thin and bad bullpen just got thin and even worse in a time where you need the Padres, if they are going to make the playoffs, which, keep in mind, all three of us, I think, have jumped on the conclusion that they're not going to. They need a really solid bullpen in order to go on those 8 to 10 game win streaks, which I think personally the Padres desperately need if they're going to make a run. You need a good bullpen. You need guys that can close out the game. So many games this year have been lost because the bullpen hasn't been able to close it. Going back to that Philadelphia series, the first one, I mean, multiple games from that point on have been given up by the bullpen. So not having Robert Suarez is definitely going to hurt, especially for these. It's a long period of time, and there's an important series coming up. The Brewers series is important, and the Giants series is important. We're not going to have them for either, I believe. So those are two very important series, and it was a very costly mistake by Robert Suarez. And I say mistake or whatever it was because he didn't really give us a reason to assume that he wasn't using that sticky stuff. He kind of just walked away, just kind of accepted it. Whatever, I took sticky stuff. It happens. It's, Max Scherzer got caught with it. Kobe have been caught with it already. But really, really disappointing loss in the bullpen for these next 10 games. I'm not disappointed that he used the sticky stuff. I mean, it's whatever. It's baseball. I mean, go ahead, do whatever you want if you can get away with it. But he got caught. It's a costly loss for the Padres in the bullpen, and hopefully it doesn't lead to costly losses in the future in these next 10 games.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, it does suck, and it's just kind of something that, like, we'll see what happens. Maybe I don't, and like I feel like the sticky stuff, merchant stuff, hasn't really been. I feel like that hasn't really been brought up since 2021 because like all the guys are using sticky stuff, and it's like, okay, who is this actually really gonna affect? So we'll see what happens with it. I don't really think you can even appeal these suspensions. I'm pretty sure they're like you can appeal them. So he's gonna be gone for 10 days. But with this series. It's a weird series because you win the series against a team that you're in a playoff race with, but it feels really underwhelming, right? Like, does it not? Like, you take 2 of 3 against the Marlins. You don't make up any ground in the wild card. You're still 5.5 back, and you put up 0 on Ha-seong Kim Bobble night, and it's just like an ugly loss. And that's the game you could have maybe, been only 4.5 back right now and been a lot, a game, was it 2 games back of the Marlins, but that's just not the case. So it's the same thing that it's kind of been all year. Like the only way the Padres make the playoffs is if they go on a stupid, like a huge win streak, 9 games, like something like that. That's probably the only way they're going to make the playoffs now. And they didn't do it this one. It felt like they could have taken care of business. They got good starts every night from their starters. It's the same thing, man. So I thought Tuesday was underwhelming, and it's weird to talk about series like, oh, they won the series, but it's not that great. But that's just the reality of the situation because of how much they've dug themselves into a hole. So it's the same thing. Next 3 series are going to be huge. You got the Brewers, the Cardinals, and the Giants. They have to win almost all of those to really have a chance. Like they have to win almost all of them. So that's just kind of where this team is at. But what do you guys think after this series? Just quick overall thoughts on it.
They looked better. I mean, you won the series. I mean, other than yesterday, the team looked decently good. They put up 10 runs in 3 games after getting shut out the second game, so it's not that bad. However, I mean, you don't really have an easy schedule going for it, and going on one of these win streaks is kind of scary. I mean, you got the Brewers, which you're facing, I believe they're 2-3-4, and you got the Cardinals, which I feel like they always play us somewhat well. Then you have the Giants and the Phillies, and then you have the Astros, and then you have the Dodgers, and then you finally get the Oakland A's and the Rockies and the Cardinals, but then you got the Giants again, and then you finish off with the White Sox. So really only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these series are going to be like, okay, well, we're expected to win these series. The rest of them, they're going to be battles. They're going to be against the teams that are also fighting for a playoff spot or in the playoffs. So if the Padres really want to do something, they are going to have to play basically perfect baseball from now on, because there can be no mistakes. There cannot be guys getting suspended for sticky stuff. We can't have starters not going 6 innings, 0-1 earned runs. It's going to have to be that caliber of baseball going forward.
It's over. Dude, I'm telling you, I firmly believe it's over. Like, how many wins do they have right now? 21. So they probably need 24 more. They have to go like 24-10, 24-11, something like that. Come on, bro. Let's be realistic, right? They can't go on a 4-game win streak. As soon as they get to 3, they lose the very next one. It's been a guarantee all year. Whenever the other teams in the wild card race lose, the Padres lose. That was the case yesterday during ha-seong Kim bobblehead night. Yeah, I mean, I've told my dad. I've been talking to other, obviously you guys, but other fans of baseball, just saying like, everyone seems so hopeful and still thinks the Padres can make the playoffs, but what we're seeing on the field, they've not given us any hope that they can. Like Matt said, it's gonna take an 8 to 10 game win streak. They can't even pull off 4. As soon as they get to 3, it's because Darvish, Snell, and Waka start, something like that. Before it was Darvish, Snell, Musgrove, right? And then you'd have to throw Ryan Weathers, and all your momentum is gone. You're back to square one trying to get on a win streak. Same thing now. It was Rich Hill. Hopefully Pedro Avila can kind of change that. And even then, Rich Hill might piggyback him. So I don't know what to expect from this Padres team, man. Losing Joe Musgrove was definitely a big loss, but I mean, good teams are able to overcome big losses, whether it be in free agency or injury. And the Padres haven't been able to do that. Yeah, it's a lot of tough series coming up. Like Chase mentioned, the Phillies, the Giants, the Astros, the Dodgers. These are teams that, I mean, we've lost multiple games to the Dodgers already. They've destroyed us up to this point. The Phillies have also already beat us in a series. The Astros, obviously, we haven't played. The Giants have already beat us in a big series. I mean, they haven't shown that they can beat these teams up to this point. And I understand that doesn't matter, but it's not like they're exactly playing better baseball than when they were losing those series. They're actually arguably playing worse. And just going back to, our thoughts on this series. Yeah, you won the series 2-1. Great. It'd be great if you were a few games over 500 and like a game back. It's not great because you can't keep just making marginal gains. Small gains at this point of the season do not help. You need a win streak, and they haven't pulled one of those off. And basically this series was to just make up ground for the ground that we lost against the Diamondbacks. So it's over.
Harsh reality, but I think that's been what we've been saying a lot lately, but it is just weird. Like, it's like, oh yeah, you win a series against a playoff team, and it's like, oh, okay. There's not like really excitement over it, which is like, I mean, but if you look at the pod, you look at like playoff, like, oh, this is the wild card race. The Padres aren't even put in those graphics anymore. So it's not like it's like, oh yeah, you guys like should be like, hopefully they could come back to them. It's like, I mean, people that are in baseball don't really think they're even in it anymore. I don't know what their percentage is, but kind of crazy considering that they were like 2 weeks ago, they were at like 40-45% because they were 3 games back and they didn't sell. They're like 3.5, I think, maybe. But now they're sitting at 5.5 games back, a couple weeks later after getting smoked by the Dodgers, getting smoked by a couple teams, and just not winning enough. So yeah, at this point, I feel like the bigger question is, are they even going to finish over 500? And they're probably not. They're 6 games back right now, I want to say. 5 or 6 games back. So rough spot right now. Tomorrow, we're going to have a Xander Bogaerts episode to talk about the scariness of his contract. And then we'll also be getting up just an overall our predictions for who's going to make the playoffs as well. So yeah, stay tuned for those. But we'll talk to y'all later and have a good one.